Okay. Hello again, everybody. The time is now 11:10 a.m.
This
and the board is
conference
out.
will now be recorded.
Sorry, I was going to say the time is now 11:10 a.m. and the board is out of executive session. So we'll go through the settlement agreements, please. Do I hear a motion to ratify the proposed permanent withdrawal with ITMD? Motion?
So moved.
Ms. Montgomery and
Dr. Johnson.
Dr. Johnson, thank you kindly. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel? Dr. Safran?
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone?
Yes.
Dr. Sohn?
Yes.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Kakarala?
Yes.
Mr. Ganadakis?
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery?
Yes.
Dr. Feibel?
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel?
Abstain.
And myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Do I hear a motion to ratify the proposed permanent surrender retirement with JLBMT? Motion?
So moved. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Giacalone. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel?
Abstain.
Dr. Safran?
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone?
Yes.
Dr. Sohn?
Yes.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Kakarala? Dr. Kakarala? Oh, thank you kindly. That's
Yes.
Mr. Ganadakis?
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery?
Yes.
Dr. Feibel?
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel?
Yes.
And myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to ratify the proposed permanent surrender retirement with JPSMD? Motion?
So moved. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. Second? Dr. Kakarala, thank you. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel?
Abstain.
Dr. Safran?
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone?
Yes.
Dr. Sohn?
Yes.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Kakarala? Mr. Ganadakis?
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery?
Yes.
Dr. Feibel?
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel?
Yes.
And myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to ratify the proposed permanent surrender with LAJPA? Motion?
So moved. Dr.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr.
Caprella.
Thank you so much. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel?
Abstain.
Dr. Safran?
Abstain.
Mr. Jekyll?
Yes.
Dr. Sohn?
Yes.
Dr. Johnson? Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Kakarala?
Yes.
Mr. Ganadakis?
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery?
Yes.
Dr. Feibel?
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel?
Abstain.
And myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to ratify the proposed permanent withdrawal with MBC? Motion?
So moved.
Dr. Johnson, Dr. Kakarala, thank you again. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel?
Abstain.
Dr. Safran?
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone?
Yes.
Dr. Sohn?
Yes.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Kakarala? And that's a yes.
Yes.
Mr. Ganadakis?
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery?
Yes.
Dr. Feibel?
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel?
Yes.
And myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Do I hear a motion to ratify the proposed Step 2 consent agreement with MDBDO? Motion, please.
So moved. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second. Dr. Caprella.
Thank you so much. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel?
Abstain.
Dr. Safran?
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone?
Yes.
Dr. Sohn?
Yes.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Kakarala?
Yes.
Mr. Ganadakis?
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery?
Yes.
Dr. Feibel?
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel?
Abstain.
And myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to ratify the proposed permanent withdrawal with RCPDO? Motion?
So moved. Dr. Caprella.
Thank you.
Second. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you so much. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel?
Abstain.
Dr. Safran?
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone?
Yes.
Dr. Sohn?
Yes.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Kakarala?
Yes.
Mr. Ganadakis?
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery?
Yes.
Dr. Feibel?
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel?
Yes.
And myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Do I hear a motion to ratify the proposed permanent surrender retirement with RHMMD? Motion?
So moved, Dr.
So
Johnson.
moved.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson and Dr. Cucurella. Thank you. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel,
Abstain.
Dr. Stafford,
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone,
Yes.
Dr. Soen,
Yes.
Dr. Johnson,
Yes.
Dr. Cucurella. Forgive me, Dr. Cucurella? Yeah. Yes, thank you. That's a yes. Mr. Ganadakis,
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery,
Yes.
Dr. Feibel,
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel,
Yes.
and myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to ratify the proposed withdrawal of application for certificate to recommend the medical use of marijuana with WKKMD? Motion, please.
So moved, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Giacalone.
Second.
Mr. Giacalone for the second. Thank you kindly. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel,
Abstain.
Dr. Stafford,
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone,
Yes.
Dr. Soen,
Yes.
Dr. Johnson,
Yes.
Dr. Cucurella,
Yes.
Mr. Ganadakis,
Abstain.
Ms. Montgomery,
Yes.
Dr. Feibel,
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel,
Abstain.
and myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Thank you. Ms. Canepa, Deputy Director of Investigations, Enforcement, and Compliance, will now present the proposed citations to the board, please. Angie, you're muted. Sorry. I'm sorry.
That will hinder my presentation. The first citation we have is against a physician for violations of minimal standards of care for a time period of between 2014 and 2018 involving 15 different patients. The maximum penalty for each violation is a permanent revocation or permanent denial of certificate and fines of anywhere up to $20,000.
Dr. Schottenstein.
Yes, ma'am.
I normally don't question citations, but I'm looking at a proposed, I think, 15 count citation. And this is, we went through this several months ago where we discussed the cost and the delay and the complexity I just do not understand why not pick out 3 or 4 solid cases instead of spreading it out. I think in this case, you might have had, our last case where we had this, we had, I think, several thousand pages worth of transcript. We had delay after delay because we didn't have experts. Why not? I appreciate that you want to lay this out and just coat this doctor with as many facts as you can for the board. But instead of taking 15 cases, find a couple of good cases, solid cases, where we can act in a timely fashion. 15 cases, we may be another year or so, and great expense and great delay. And if we have a standards case that is this difficult, then let us move more expeditiously by narrowing the number of citations and then focusing on those where we can move more quickly. And frankly, the delay and the cost and the time spent by staff is really, I just find that really unnecessary. If you have a good case, you ought to be able to find a couple of cases and prosecute it. If you require 15, that either tells me one of two things. Either we're just overdoing it, or we're trying to make weight because we don't think we have a strong case. It doesn't sound to me as if the latter is what's happening. And so I would really ask you, as attorneys general and as our staff, to look carefully at whether we go through this extension, because it'll delay in a standards case. It'll add expense, it'll add time, and at a time when we have a huge backlog to begin with.
Thank you so much for your thoughtful comments. Yeah, Dr. Feibel.
I think the most important part of that is in addition to the time and backlog and everything else, is that if this doctor is truly violating the minimal standards of care, we're waiting from 2014 to 2020 or 2021 to take action. So I think that is even the more worrisome part, or not worrisome, but the more important part of the delay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Feibel. Is there further discussion?
I do
Angie,
think this
anything?
merits. I do
Oh,
think it merits. I think it merits us as having a strong discussion about the policy with regard to these kind of citations. Is these sitting down with the staff and with the Attorney General's office to see if we can find a way to do what needs to be done so that we can move more expeditiously on particularly these standards cases.
Thank you again so much. Ms. Canepa, did you want to respond?
No. I think the discussion's probably best had elsewhere, other than, obviously we did have evaluations of these complaints, and oftentimes a one and done is viewed very much differently if there's only one violation of minimal standards versus if this is a pattern. I think that ultimately makes a difference in penalties or, how we approach this. So that's just my, general response to that.
I think you can have
I
a
understand
pattern
your points.
I think you can have a pattern that doesn't require 15 as opposed to maybe 5. I think we get the point if you can give us solid number of cases, but not bury us and bury the process and at the same time delay it. I think we get the point about pattern if you can, figure it out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the matter? Okay. Please be so kind to proceed.
The second request for citation is another physician, and this is based on a felony conviction related to his practice. He pled guilty to 2 felonies in federal court based on distributing Schedule II controlled substances and 1 count of false statements related to healthcare matters. He pled guilty on October 7th. It was accepted by the court, and he was adjudicated guilty on October 27th. We received a prosecutor's form from the AUSA who handled the case on November 17th. And from that point, we have 30 days to take action. This also includes a request for an immediate suspension based on that felony conviction related to his practice. And the maximum penalty, I apologize, is a permanent revocation and a fine of up to $20,000.
Dr. Schottenstein, I just want to let you know that I have to abstain from that particular case.
Thank you so much for letting me know. Any other discussion on that?
Okay, the next citation again is for a physician, and this also is based on a felony related conviction related to practice. It's a conviction out of New York for conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud. He pled guilty in December of 2019. He wasn't sentenced, however, until November of this year. And he was sentenced to 3 years probation, received a fine, and was ordered to pay restitution in an amount of almost $700,000. So it was obviously a fairly extensive fraud scheme. The maximum penalty is a permanent surrender and a fine of between $18,000 and $20,000. Any questions on that? Okay, and the last one that we have today is also a physician, and this is a bootstrap case based on action taken by the medical board in Michigan. In June of this year, his license was suspended for 2 years for issuing over 21,000 marijuana cards, and that was within a 1-year time frame. You can do the math about how many per day that would be. The closest the second runner-up, I guess, was 6,000 medical marijuana cards, just to give you some perspective. He often did that without performing an exam or maintaining any records. Maximum penalty is a permanent surrender if we base that on prescribing without a legitimate medical purpose, and a potential fine of up to $17,000.
Any discussion on that? Okay. Well, I thank you very kindly, Angie, for going through all of those with us.
Yes, thank you.
Of course. So maybe we'll go through the motions if you'd be so kind. Do I hear a motion to approve and to issue citation number 2 and immediate suspension? Motion, please.
So moved, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Move, Jack Loney.
Thank you so much. Excuse me. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel,
Abstain.
Dr. Saffron,
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone,
Yes.
and Dr. Sohn abstains. Yes. And Dr. Johnson,
Yes.
Dr. Cacarella,
Yes.
Mr. Ganadakis,
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery,
Yes.
Dr. Feibel,
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel,
Abstain.
and myself, Michael Schottenstein. Yes. Excuse me. We will be considering citation number 1 separately, so Dr. Bechtel may abstain or vote appropriately. Would any board member like to consider any other citation separately? Do I hear a motion to approve and issue citation number 1? Motion, please.
So moved, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. A second?
Second, Dr. Cacarella.
Thank you so much. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel,
Abstain.
Dr. Saffron,
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone,
Yes.
Dr. Sohn,
Yes.
Dr. Johnson,
Yes.
Dr. Cacarella,
Yes.
Mr. Ganadakis,
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery,
Yes.
Dr. Feibel,
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel,
Abstain.
and myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Do I hear a motion to approve and issue citations 3 and 4? Motion, please.
So moved, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. A second? Dr. Bechtel, thank you so much. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel,
Abstain.
Dr. Saffron,
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone,
Yes.
Dr. Sohn,
Yes.
Dr. Johnson,
Yes.
Dr. Cacarella,
Yes.
Mr. Ganadakis,
Abstain.
Ms. Montgomery,
Yes.
Dr. Feibel,
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel,
Yes.
and myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Thank you. Excuse me. Ms. Stephanie Luca, Executive Director, will now present the operations report. Stephanie?
Thank you, Dr.
Uh,
Schottenstein.
hi.
From our operations report today, I'd like to start by welcoming 2 new staff members on board. So we have Brandy Dorsey, who has joined us as our Chief of Compliance. She comes to us from the Attorney General's office. So she started this week and already diving in. And we also have Lydia Johnson, who is a new investigator who joined us up in the Northeast Ohio region. Both have been able to do some working together, which has been great. They've been in the office and doing some virtual things as well this week. So great to have two new staff members on board. I think, as we all know, there's plenty of work to go around. We could use a few more hands. As we're looking through the operations report, Dr. Schottenstein, of course, will give a more robust report for the finances, but good news on the revenue side. So we did have a rash of renewals in November, which is fantastic. So we caught up a lot on our revenue for November. So we're looking good on the revenue side. Expenses, payroll, we're staying steady, and our frankly, our office supplies are down a little bit because, well, we're not in the office. So we're saving a little money on the office supplies. Just looking ahead, I think one of the things I just want to make sure that you all are aware of is that we have turned the phones back on for all of our calls, actually. So we now have a virtual call center that is live. And it's going very well. Of course, we've had a few hiccups as we're getting used to it, but it's great that we are working virtually and now able to just take calls as if we were in the office. We're keeping good track of those calls and the metrics to really see, kind of how things are being routed and make sure we're maintaining those customer service standards. But it's, it's been a nice transition, and really, really excited that we're able to do that and still be remote. I think it gives our licensees, the experience we were used to having when we were in the office. So that's great. With respect to licensure, we had the initial renewal delay until December 1st that came out at, toward the beginning of the pandemic. Through that delay, we had about 5,745-ish licensees who did not renew. As the operations report maybe has a little typo in it, it says they expired. Licensees did not expire, the license expired. Ms. Montgomery nicely pointed out to me that our licensees, we don't think expired, just the license. There was, however, late legislation, and that legislation has now is licenses until July 1st of 2021. So, I will remind you, in September, we were at about 17,000 licensees who needed to renew, and that number 1,000. So again, that's why our revenue looks so great this month. That's good news. There will be another extension period for licensees who have to expire between January 1st and December 1st and April 1st. Actually, stop. It's for all of July 1st through April 1st. Hold on. I'm just going to reset my mind here on this. It's from the March through April 1st of 2021. Now have until July 1st of 2021 to renew. The group of licensees from January 1st to April 1st are 15,000. So pretty short, we have 15,000 folks who could push out until July 1st, but we'll keep a close eye on those licensees and really follow the same communication strategy that we followed with this past group that were set to expire in December. Dr. Rothermel, a question?
What is the real purpose of this extension? Is it financial because they're afraid people aren't practicing? I'm just concerned about this because we all need our licenses and they need to be current. So it just seems unusual to me.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. We were surprised that the license extension was extended again. That really was a last minute surprise to us. And it's statewide. So it is really any license holder all around the state. So that means people who are getting their driver's license renewed, any type of state license has been renewed. I would speculate that the reason the legislature did that was to possibly for those in-person renewals, cut down on in-person renewals, as well as make accommodations to some industries where there's been a lapse of revenue. And then also maybe for our licensees who are, for our healthcare licensees who are working, who maybe just can't renew right now for some reason. We weren't really a part of that conversation on the renewal side, so I don't know really what their motivation was, but I think we are well positioned as a board, particularly compared to some other boards. But I think we've been lucky so far in getting the renewals and that we need. But we will have some licensees who will have gone from March of the pandemic in 2020, July 1st of 2021, without renewing. Their initial renewal date doesn't change, and so that's going to be our big communication lift, is to remind them they then have to renew again in March of they might have to renew again in March of 2022, even if they wait until July of 2021 to renew, right? So that initial renewal date doesn't change. And that's really what we're reminding people. You don't have another full 2 years after you renew.
Yeah, that was going to be my other comment, that I think that's going to be the difficulty, and us really making sure that people are aware of that, because that may be even more difficult for people.
Absolutely.
Dr. Rothermel, I think your question is really well placed in that in those renewals, oftentimes we're getting the responses that trigger us into citations and disciplinary behaviors. And I don't know if there's a way to exempt us in the, as Angela Canepa called the lame duck season. But I do, it may be worth it to try to open that up, at least for us, because it means that we're not catching some things we should be catching, and again, creating yet another backlog on bad behavior.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and we will, the good news is we know that our communications efforts worked in November when we really did start pushing out those messages, because we really saw literally tens of thousands of licensees renew right away. So I think we have the messaging right. The other thing I will say is that we worked very closely with the associations. And so Jill Reardon was able to work with them to push out messaging as well, to make sure that when we did not know that December 1st date was going to get extended, she was working closely with them to give them updated counts so they could continue to push out messaging. And they were great partners in that, helping people get renewed. So that was good. Okay, I'll move on. I just want to also let you know that yes, Dr. Schottenstein.
Forgive me, I just had one quick question about the numbers. The 5,747, right, are the licensees who did not renew by December 1st. And
Correct.
then the 15,750 is the estimated by July 1st. Does the 15,750 include the 5,747? In other words, is that 15,750 a total number, or is it 15 plus 5?
It does include. So that's
checking.
total. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Actually, thanks to Joe, who was able to Skype in quickly and tell me that. So the wonders of technology. I just got a yes flash up on my screen. All right. And I saw Jill nodding as well. So Jill knew that number as well. All right. So for the sexual misconduct protocol, we initially came out with the sexual misconduct protocol in July of 2019. It predates me. And that protocol, throughout our work over the past year with our board committee, working with the Strauss Working Group, listening to staff input, we have revised that protocol. The secretary and supervising member have signed that protocol, and we will be rolling that updated protocol out to staff on Monday, December 14th. A couple of highlights from that protocol that I think, we've had so much conversation with the board about how we do things that I just thought, it's important that we continue to keep you updated. As we are working through that protocol, we want to let you know that we are formalizing some of the practices, frankly, that have been in place, but for consistency's sake over time, we want to make sure we keep those investigatory and enforcement practices in place. We've also implemented a process where before recommending a closure to the secretary and supervising member, that used to go through a committee. And now that close recommendation is actually going through the deputy director of the division. So that's Angela Canepa right now. And so what we've done is we've really, I think, streamlined that process to keep that work flowing very well between investigations and enforcement, and having those teams work together, and then really keeping that, that conversation sort of as a team-based conversation. The victim advocate will also be part of those conversations, so that when secretary and supervising member are getting a recommendation for close or for next steps, they can feel confident that all the staff members have been in conversation with each other, to the appropriate degree, and that they're bringing forward a good, sound recommendation. And obviously, they'll still have questions and still go through their processes, but I do think this really streamlines our work internally. And like I said, it really memorializes a lot of what was happening, but this is the guarantee that it will happen. So this is the checkoff that we know these steps have to be followed when we're following sexual misconduct cases. So any questions about that? Yeah, Dr. Schottenstein. May we see a copy of the protocol, the updated protocol? I believe so. Kim, are there any challenges with that? Yep. We'll make sure we get that out. Mm-hmm. Thanks very kindly.
I think you've seen earlier versions of it.
Yes. I'd be just glad to see the final if you'd be so kind.
Sure. And then finally, for my update, we did a Strauss working group update yesterday and rounded out updates to them. And I think the update went well. And that work group seemed to indicate like they will be making a recommendation to the governor that their work is concluded. Of course, that it's the governor's work group, so the governor gets to decide if they're concluded. So we'll see what happens with that. But they, as a finale, they will be making some recommendations to all boards and commissions about certain trainings. We're probably doing a lot of that training work and already or have already done that work. But we will be working, continuing to work with boards and commissions. And frankly, I think we'll probably be able to be advising some boards and commissions because given our work and given our sheer volume of cases, we are a little bit ahead of where some of the small to medium-sized boards and commissions are with their practices.
Dr.
Yes,
Stephanie, let's look at as part of the Strauss investigation, did we report separately on the cases that we had failure to report on? Because we went back decades on the failure to report, did special attention on those investigations, and coming forward, where are we now on all of those ancient as well as current failures to report by the doctors or professionals that are required to report?
Right. So we have of the 1,254 licensees that we reviewed, we have by the external reviewers, right? Remember, we hired external reviewers to do that first passive review of those 1,254 cases or licensees. We had a chunk, and I'm not going to remember the number right off the top of my head. I want to say it was maybe 30, 70 something, and then that number gets whittled down to about 39, where they were recommending that we go back and look at the duty to report. And we are. So those will enter our workflow, just like if we received a duty to report today. We are, of course, giving those priority because they are older cases, and we want to make sure that we're not letting those linger and that they're going to go to the back of the line. They will be vetted through the process just like we would a normal complaint today. So if we take action to report, that would come to you, and if it would come to you just like any other open complaint comes to you today. There are some where transparently, given the age of the complaint and given the complications of understanding the duty to report, as well as the timing of the rules and laws, there are some that lend themselves in that review to a very clear caution letter of, we think you may have had knowledge of this at some point in time. We appreciate that you told your employer. We want to remind you that now that 20 years have passed, you need to report those directly to the medical board, right? And so I really think that with the vast majority of those, what we are really seeing are educational opportunities to remind people that those come directly to us. Where there are egregious failures, I think you will see those come before you like you would have any other action, right? And so those are definitely conversations that we're having that if they warrant a cite, they would come to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great. And then finally, to round out my report, we always display this open and closed complaint data every month, and I think it's helpful. But I do think that based on some feedback yesterday at the Strauss Working Group, as well as just a general desire to continue to improve, I do feel like there's opportunity here for us to get a little more granular with what we're reporting out on the open and closed complaints, and just, for the sake of transparency. And all in de-identified ways, of course, but it's something that, we'll just, this is a big step forward being able to display it this way, but I do think we can continue to improve what our breakdown looks like on the open and closed complaints. I mean, right now you can see that we stay steady at around 2,000 complaints open a month. And that's, that is what it is. So, any questions on that?
Stephanie, your mic's off. Oh.
Now your video's off.
One moment. This is Ben. I'm not able to unmute her as well.
Pretty clever of you, Benton.
No. I plead innocence.
There you go.
I'm trying. I'm sorry. I'm back, I think. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Love of technology. Okay. Any questions on the operations report? Otherwise, I think I'm concluded with my report.
If you'd be so kind, I'm just curious, like, for example, what you meant by being more granular. Like when you say you improve that.
Sure. So for example, how many bootstraps do we get a month, right? How many open complaints do we get that are bootstraps? How many, I think we can show the ebb and flow in a little more detail.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for your report, Stephanie. We'll move on to election of officers. If you'd be so kind, I just had a few thoughts I wanted to share before we do that. I really just sort of wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for the opportunity to serve as president for this past year and a half. I'm honored that I was able to serve you during what I think has been an eventful time. And I just want to say from my heart how much this has meant to me. The work is very meaningful. It's an opportunity to give back to the citizens of Ohio and to our profession. I have great appreciation for the commitment and the hard work of all of the board members and the staff. I've done my best to be worthy of you. I will miss being president, but I'm grateful to continue to be able to serve as a board member. And I know I leave the presidency in very capable hands. And I wish Dr. Bechtel and Ms. Montgomery all the best. I would like to point out, and Benton was kind enough to point this out to me, that when Dr. Bechtel assumes the board presidency on January 1st, he will become the first member of the medical board to have served in all four of the board's offices: president, vice president, secretary, and supervising member. Congratulations on that milestone, Dr. Bechtel. And of course, I wish Dr. Rothermill and Dr. Safran all the best as well as they continue in office. And a special thank you to Stephanie, who's been a great partner to me during this time. I'm certainly here if I may continue to be of help, and thank you all so much.
I would like to make a comment in regards to Dr. Schonstein. I think he really needs to be recognized and congratulated for his strong leadership, his dedication. He really is the gold standard going forward of what a really great president is. He faced some really challenging times with the Strauss investigation, with the impact of COVID-19 on healthcare delivery, and has been really just a true champion of Ohio patient protection and protecting our citizens. He's done an extensive amount of work behind the scenes. The amount of time and effort he put in the Strauss investigations and the sexual misconduct is incredible. What's really impressed me is the fact that he's reached out to members and employees of the medical board to engage them in conversation and to show how important they are in the overall operation of the medical board. He's gone so far beyond what many others have in the past. He's provided such strong leadership. And he's set an example going forward of what a great leader really is. And I think we all should really recognize him. Thank you.
You're very kind, Dr. Bechtel. Thank you so much for your kind words.
Dr. Schottenstein,
yes.
have to echo. I think you have set such a high bar for any of us who have any, who will have any leadership positions. It is remarkable the amount of time you put in and thought, and it is. You've given us a great service, and I for one will join with Dr. Bechtel in saying, "Well done, oh good and faithful servant."
You're very kind. Thank you.
You've done an outstanding job. Very part of it you're such an excellent physician, but you could make an excellent lawyer too. You're so articulate and pull down and stuff. I sit here in awe at times to your analysis. So, you need an honorary law degree to go on with the position. They're going to be. You've done a fantastic job through some incredible time, and it's a testament to you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you all very kindly. So without further ado, do I hear a motion to elect Dr. Bechtel as president, Ms. Montgomery as vice president, Dr. Rothermel as secretary, and Dr. Safran as supervising members for terms beginning January 1st, 2021 and ending December 31st, 2021? Motion, please.
So moved, Dr. Caprella.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Mr. Ganadakis, thank you kindly. All in favor, voice vote? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain for mine.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, congratulations all, and thank you so much for taking this on.
Good luck.
So I think Kim is up to discuss rules and policies.
Thank you, Dr. Schottenstein. You have in your packet the rules related to military provisions. And so the JCAR jurisdiction is ended, and we've had the JCAR meeting and the public hearing. We received only one comment, which was really non-substantive, just a question asking if the rules should be forwarded to a particular constituency, so not related to the content themselves. The rules are really consolidating a number of rules in all of our chapters into 3 rules, and it will soon be 4 that are in one chapter. So there's one place where all the military provisions are housed. So I think this has been a lengthy project, but a good one, and it will help make our rules more streamlined. If there's not any questions, we have a motion to adopt, amend, and rescind the rules described in the memo, and we will make the effective date December 31.
Any discussion? Thank you so much. So we have a motion then to adopt, amend, and rescind the rules as described in the November 20th, 2020 memorandum from Ms. Anderson, and to assign each rule action the effective date of December 31st, 2020. Motion, please.
So moved.
Dr. Safran and
Second, Dr. Caprella.
thank you so much. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel,
Yes.
Dr. Safran,
Yes.
Mr. Giacalone,
Yes.
Dr. Sohn,
Yes.
Dr. Johnson,
Yes.
Dr. Kakarala,
Yes.
Mr. Ganadakis,
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery,
Yes.
Dr. Feibel,
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel,
Yes.
and myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Thank you. You will find in your board meeting packet an item on committee assignments proposed for calendar year 2021. Does anyone have any comments on the proposed committee assignments? Okay, well, thank you then. As noted in the committee assignments memo, a suggestion has been made to incorporate the work of the policy committee into future board meetings as a standing agenda item with all members participating. Would any board member like to offer discussion of that suggestion? Dr. Feibel.
I don't know whether everyone wants to do this or not, but the ICD-10 committee has a large number of board members as well on it, and we might be better suited to include that in the board meeting as well, but I leave that up for discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Feibel. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have just one comment. The reason
Yes, sir.
President, I scheduled it so everybody could be part of the policy committee because everybody had a vested interest in the policy committee, and it seemed like that was the most popular one. So it just seems like this is the normal evolution just to bring it back, since everybody is attending it anyways. The meetings almost seems obvious, just make it a standing committee or make it a standing event during the whole board meeting.
Thank you so much. Ms. Montgomery.
I think it's a wonderful suggestion and Mr. Giacaloni's proposal to make it. I think you were the one that at first suggested this, because I always felt that given we're oftentimes moving along very quickly because we had such little time to do it. In this way, since it is an issue that the whole board has interest in various areas, I think it's an excellent move, and congratulations to those who made the proposal. I think so it gives us more time if we need it, and if we don't, then we can do like Dr. Soin did today, and we were done in 45 minutes.
Thank you so much. I guess I very much appreciate also the thought about the ICD-10. What's a little bit tricky about that one is we have other parties typically who join us, like Dr. Applegate used to come, Dr. Hurst used to come, and I don't know if that would present an issue in terms of the flow of the meeting if we incorporated it into the afternoon. Any other discussion on this? So maybe with everybody's tacit approval, we'll go forward, incorporating policy committee matters into the full board, and, glad to have additional discussion going forward on any of the other committees that anybody thinks that would be, productive for. Any other discussion? Okay. Well, thanks all very much. Ms. Reardon, if you'd be so kind, will now give the Respiratory Care Advisory Council report and the Dietetics Advisory Council report, please.
Thank you, Dr. Schottenstein, members of the board. I will defer to Dr. Coccarella after I do the Dietetics Advisory Council reports. You can do the Respiratory Care Advisory Council report. The Dietetics Advisory Council held their final meeting for the year this week on December the 7th. The minutes from the November 2020 council meeting were approved. Chelsea Wansky, our legislative director, gave an update on legislation that was pertinent to the medical board and to our advisory councils. We reviewed the FAQs for the licensed dietitians that are housed on the State Medical Board of Ohio website, and changes were suggested, and we will be looking at those and bringing those back for the next meeting. The 2021 dates for the council were forwarded to the council members and also posted on the State Medical Board website. It was mentioned during the meeting that some of the members of the council have terms that will expire next year, and we'll be reaching out to them to see if they want to be reappointed and coordinating with the president of the medical board. We did talk to them about House Bill 404 that Stephanie talked about earlier that was passed by the legislature and signed by the governor for license extension. We are asking in every communication that goes out either to the associations or to the licensees for them to consider to go ahead and renew their licenses early. The next meeting for the Dietetics Advisory Council is scheduled for February 8th of 2021. Dr. Coccarella.
Thanks, Joe. The Respiratory Care Advisory Council held their final meeting for the year 2020 on December 8th. The minutes from the September 2020 council meeting were approved. Chelsea Wansky, the medical board's legislative director, gave an update on legislation that's pertinent to the medical board of Ohio and its advisory councils. Sierra Lynch gave an update on COART documents. The council was informed that House Bill 404 was passed by the legislature, as mentioned before, signed by the governor, and allowed for licenses that are set to expire during the period of the emergency, March 9th to 2020 to April 1st, 2021, to have until July 1st, 2021 to renew respective licenses. There was a robust conversation about the need for and use of respiratory therapists during the current pandemic and its surge. It was discussed there is a lack of respiratory therapists, and that preceded the pandemic, and this has now grown significantly more during the surge. The board staff indicated that all respiratory therapy and limited license being applied for being expedited during the pandemic. If there are any issues, to contact the board immediately to help resolve these issues. The board staff talked about efforts to work with respiratory therapy educators across the state to make sure any qualified students can obtain their limited license as soon as possible. And this is obviously an ongoing conversation that we'll be having throughout the year and probably following years. The next meeting of the Respiratory Care Advisory Council is scheduled for March 9th, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kakarala and Jill. Thank you very much. And so now Dr. Swan will provide an update from the policy committee, please.
Yes, thank you very much. The policy committee, met today, and we went over and approved our minutes. We discussed, the rule review updates that will be occurring in 2021. For example, the CME rules are JCAR and public hearing, and they'll be ready probably in January. And then, of course, throughout the year, we'll be doing more rule review updates. Regarding the rules that were in CSI that needed formal action items, I believe Kim handled those in her rules update. I don't know if we have anything else to vote on regarding that. Do we, Kim?
I think we would like a vote for the amendments on the temporary military licensure and the hearing rules. That there were amendments there. I'd like to take those back to CSI. And then for the light-based devices, we have amendments that we'd like approved to take to PAPC and the nursing board.
Okay. Can we do that all through one motion?
I think that would be okay.
Great. Is there a motion to approve the amendments?
So moved.
Dr. Bechtel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. Hearing no opposition. And after that, we went on to do our legislative update. Of course, the legislative tracker, is available in our board packet. As usual, it has been customary for the past couple of months. It's a very robust tracker. And after that, that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Dr. Swan.
I'm sorry, if I may interrupt for a moment, this is Benton. Do we need to vote on the consultation with the pharmacy board regarding the consult, or was that part of the motion that was previously made?
That was not part of the motion. We could vote on that to communicate back to the pharmacy board on the consult rules and to send our rules to the pharmacy board on PA consult agreements. That was an oversight on my part. We could vote on that.
Okay, thank you, Benton, for pointing that out. Okay, so do I hear a motion to communicate to the Board of Pharmacy the board's comments on the Board of Pharmacy's proposed consult agreement rules and approve submission of the medical board's proposed consult agreement rules to the Board of Pharmacy for consultation as required in 4729.39E2 Ohio Revised Code? Motion, please. Dr. Bechtel, and sorry, who was second?
Safran.
Dr. Safran, thank you kindly. Any further discussion on that matter? Okay, all in favor, voice vote, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thanks everybody very kindly for that. We'll turn now to the Finance Committee update, please, and I'll provide that. So, looking at our fiscal update for October 2020, revenue was $1,427,152. You may compare that to the $545,869 in revenue from October 2018, which actually is a more typical revenue number because October is not a renewal month for us. The increased revenue, as we heard earlier, is a function of the licensee renewal for those who had taken advantage of the extension of the deadline. So, in addition, I would point out, when we talked about those 5,747 licensees who've not renewed by the December 1st, that we would expect some natural attrition there as well. So that number is probably on some level inflated. And so having said that, With regard to the 15,750 licensees that we talked about before that potentially are delayed until July 1st, actually a substantial number of those licensees have started renewing early, and that's potentially a function of the routine email communications we've been sending out to remind people to renew. So we'll continue that process, I should say. But in that regard, November is looking really good for us with preliminary numbers of $2 million in revenue, which is clearly by far a record for us. Our cash balance has again improved at $5,572,042. That is record territory for us. But just as another preview of the November cash balance, we're up around $6.8 million. So you may see a 13.4% increase year to date in expenditures. That is a function of the fact that October had 3 pay periods instead of the usual 2. That happens about twice a year. That additional pay period represents a roughly $300,000 expense and accounts for that increased expenditure. We received $21,700 in disciplinary fines in the month of October, in addition to the $551.20 received from collections. We levied $40,500 in fines. That's a big month for us. And we've received $82,047 in total fines year to date. I would also mention that we've received about $25,000 in federal money for reimbursements related to COVID-related expenses. So those are expenses we would not otherwise have accrued, relating to things like personal protective equipment, laptops, staff overtime regarding COVID-related matters and such. There's no new business. Any questions about Finance Committee matters? Okay, thank you all. Next, Dr. Safran will address the Licensure Committee business, please.
Thank you, Dr. Schottenstein. Today for board consideration, we have 2 licensure requests. Information on each of the requests have been prepared by licensure staff and distributed to board members. Does any board member wish to consider any of these applications separately? Do I hear a motion to approve the licensure staff recommendations for the request of Annette Bell, LD, and Amy Ritzel, MT?
So moved.
Dr. Bechtel and Dr. Coccarella. Any discussion? Roll call, Dr. Rothermel?
Yes.
Myself, Safran, yes. Mr. Jackalone?
Yes.
Dr. Soin?
Yes.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Coccarella?
Yes.
Mr. Ganadakis?
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery?
Yes.
Dr. Feibel?
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel?
Yes.
Dr. Schottenstein?
Yes.
This concludes the Licensure Committee report. I just want to take a moment to say how much I appreciated Dr. Schottenstein's input and help as president. He was always there for us to talk to work out information that we needed to come to the board. He's just an exceptional person and very, very hardworking and unbelievably intelligent. So I just want to personally thank him for everything that he did for us.
You're very kind to say such nice things. That's really meaningful. All of you, I thank you really from the bottom of my heart for your kind words today.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you so much. So we'll move on if we may to the motion then. Do I hear a motion that the request for the reinstatement of the license of William Danko, MD, be approved subject to the probationary terms and conditions as outlined in the August 12th, 2020 board order for a minimum of 3 years? Motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery. Is there a second?
Second, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you very kindly. A roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel?
Abstain.
Dr. Safran?
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone?
Yes.
Dr. Sohn?
Yes.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Coccarella?
Yes.
Mr. Gunadakis,
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery,
Yes.
Dr. Feibel,
Yes.
Dr. Beck,
Abstain.
and myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. Do I hear a motion to approve the compliance staff's reports of conferences for November 9th and 12th, 2020? Motion, please.
Move Jack Loney.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Cockrell.
Thank you so much. All in favor, voice vote, aye.
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 All opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. At this time, we will consider the probationary requests in today's agenda that have been prepared by the Standards Review and Compliance staff and distributed to board members. Before asking for a motion, does any board member wish to consider a probationary request separately?
Michael, I just have a question on Julie Anderson and Michael Hawkins.
Uh-huh.
It says are not in support by the secretary and supervising member. I'm not sure where we're going with those.
So I did actually point that out, and in the revised, like they republished it, and it says that they do recommend the request. So thank you so much for mentioning that.
Sorry about that. I should have pulled up the most current one. Okay.
Not at all. I wondered the same thing. Any other comments on the probationary matters? Okay, thank you very kindly. So, do I hear a motion to approve the secretary and supervising members' recommendations for the probationary requests? Motion, please.
So moved, Dr. Cockrell.
Thank you so much. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you so much, Ms. Montgomery. Roll call, please. Dr. Rothermel?
Abstain.
Dr. Safran?
Abstain.
Mr. Giacalone?
Yes.
Dr. Sowen?
Yes.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Mr. Gunadakis?
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery?
Yes.
Dr. Feibel?
Yes.
Dr. Bechtel?
Abstain.
And myself, Michael Schottenstein, yes. That concludes the December 9th, 2020 meeting of the State Medical Board of Ohio. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Dr. Safran and Dr. Cockrell, thank you. All in favor, voice vote, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The time is 12:12 p.m.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Great job,
All the best to
Michael.
everyone. Thank you so much. All the best. It's been an honor. Have a great month, a great holiday season, and I'll look